Shut up and sit down.
Hello, I'm Bill Wells. Welcome to the Quarterback Room, powered by Sports One. Our guest today is a former assistant coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He's an NFL analyst and frequent guest on radio and TV talking about NFL talent. He was instrumental in developing FBU into one of the leading athlete training and recruiting platforms in America. And he's a private quarterback instructor as well, serving on the staff of the Quarterback Ranch Elite Passing Academy powered by Adidas. Glenn Smith, welcome to the Quarterback Room.
I appreciate you having me today, Bill.
Well, thanks. It's very good to have you. So let's go ahead and talk about the 2020 NFL Draft that just wrapped up. It was obviously very different. Do you think the virtual nature of the draft and the lack of face-to-face time that led up to it made it tougher to analyze and judge these players?
Well, I do believe that. I think anytime you don't have a pro day, you don't have the ability to go to their backyard, and let's just use the quarterbacks because that's what we're talking about here. But we'll talk about Joe Burrow in the first pick. And, you didn't have the ability if you were a scout, you were a head coach, you were one of the position coaches, to go to his backyard, to go to his pro day, to watch him throw to his receivers, watch him throw to his tight ends. All of those things go into a draft conversation, and when you start stacking them up on the board. So I think they were able to do some of the stuff that they wanted to do from a Zoom perspective and, be able to get those guys on the board and understand what they wanted to see and see if they understood progression reads, coverages, how they read coverages. All of that is fine. But, yes, not being able to go on their campus for their pro days and see them be able to do some of the things that you would like to see, I do think that left a little bit of doubt in a lot of people's minds, and not just for quarterbacks, Bill, but for everybody across the board. And then, I'll take it a step further. You think about these guys who weren't able to go to the combine. I mean, that means that these team doctors didn't get a chance to get a look at those guys. And so I do think it's a very different draft, and it was interesting, and I think it was fun in some ways to see the general managers and the head coaches with their families and their kids, and some of that was fun. But, boy, I think you saw some guys. I think you also saw some guys reach and some guys, you say, man, I hope this guy really pans out. We won't know that for a few years. But there were some reaches in this draft, too.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I know at the Combine there's testing that goes on beyond what you see on the field, both mental and physical with doctors. Do you know, Glenn, were they able to do any of that this year, or did it just not happen?
Well, they were able to do that to the guys that went to the Combine. Obviously, a lot of teams still use the Wonderlic, and, everybody's team doctor still looks at everybody, and it's shared information. They share the information throughout with everybody else. And then if you're talking about drafting a first-round, second-round pick, obviously those doctors wanted to, take a look at those guys. I think I'm talking more, Bill, about those guys that went late 4, 5, and 6. And then you heard even, Kevin Colbert, the general manager of Pittsburgh, say, can we have 10 rounds in this draft? Yeah. Almost as if he wanted to have some other bullets, to say, hey, we didn't get to do all of our homework on all of these guys, and we certainly, the league is made up 60% of guys that go after the fourth round, so certainly, we'd like to have, a do-over or a chance, and the league didn't do that. They didn't waver, so I think it's going to be very interesting in a few years to see where this, how this pans out and where these guys go.
So you talk about evaluating these players, and obviously film is a huge part of that evaluation process. As they say, the eye and the sky don't lie. But saying that, I would ask you, all those interviews, all those tests, all those talking to coaches, are those really to form an opinion on a player, or are they simply to confirm or not confirm what you see on film?
Well, let's just cut it up in a piece of pie. And now different general managers are going to cut a different piece of pie. It might be a little bigger with what you see on film. It might be a little smaller to how they run at the combine or how they run at the pro day, which they didn't have this year, how they throw, how did they do in their interview. It's all one big pack, and you're trying to make a decision that, boy, we feel good about this guy, or, oh, my goodness, I don't think he's got, I don't think, you start to develop some doubt. I don't think he has the football aptitude. I don't think he's got the acumen. I don't think he can grasp things. I'm not sure how quick a learner he is. I mean, all of those things do go into it. That's why they have those interviews, and that's why they try to sit those players down and find out a little bit about their not only football side of things, but their background. I can't tell you how many times. I'll use one guy for an example. I mean, Darren Cheverini is a heck of an offensive coordinator and been a good college coach. He was coach at I think he's still at Colorado. I'll never forget Walter Julep walked in, starts talking about, and we had Darren Cheverini on the board, decent receiver out of Colorado, and the first thing Walter Julep wanted to tell us was his dad's an Elvis impersonator in Las Vegas. I mean, what the hell's that got to do with anything? Nothing. But we all want, we want to know about guys. We want to know about their backgrounds. We want to know about their families. So all of it goes into really, trying to make a good, sound, solid decision.
Is there ever a player, and I know ever's a long time, but is there ever a player that you look at on film, that you look at measurables and everything's a go, and then you sit down with them and say, I just can't work with this guy? Does that ever happen?
Well, I mean, I'll go back to another guy, and all we have is our own point of reference. But, I mean, Demetrius Underwood was a Michigan State defensive tackle. He's probably 6'5", 315. He had played for Saban at Michigan State. Now, it was really unfortunate because it was later discovered this young man was bipolar. But if you just put on his film and we just put on his pro day workout, he was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, strong, physical, great feet, unbelievable. I mean, you watch him run the ropes. He ran the ropes like a defensive back. He was unbelievable. Unfortunately, testing-wise, he couldn't come in and be able to do the things that you needed to do to be a professional athlete. He could not do it, and it's really unfortunate because that young man had immense talent. And I'll tell you that I think it happens all the time. I think guys have unbelievable talent, and you flip on the film and the guy jumps off at you and you're like, holy cow, and he just off the field, he can't adapt, he doesn't do things right, and yeah, I think it happens a lot, Bill, and more than even you would think. And the reason we don't know about it anymore is because the testing and the things that are done, there'll be some teams that'll just look at a guy like that. If they even hear one big issue or one circumstance, they'll take them off the board. I've seen it happen. I saw it happen in my 10 years with the Cowboys. I can't tell you how many times. So absolutely it happens. Now, we can flip the coin and say, do you want to gamble on a guy like that? Certainly, we gambled on him and it didn't work out. And you've seen Jerry gamble on guys like Randy Gregory. You've seen him this year. I mean, Aldon Smith, in same scenarios, he has a huge upside, but he's had multiple off the field problems and is currently suspended by the league. And Jerry still said, "Hey, we're going to take a shot on this guy." So I think that the testing does matter. Understanding guys' backgrounds, families, understanding how smart they are, how do they interact, girlfriends, all those things. Absolutely, it matters.
For this year's draft, Joe Burrow, the quarterback from LSU, was obviously the first overall pick. I'd just ask you, is he, it was as close to unanimous as a first pick I think could come. Is he a can't-miss prospect, or is there any such thing as can't miss in the NFL?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that say he's a can't miss, but I mean, I guess I'd kind of push it back to you and say he had 14 guys off his team drafted. I mean, had a really good cast of guys around him, had a pro offensive coordinator come in there and help Steve Ensminger set up a system that really fit him. Obviously, Coach Brady has gone to He's gone to Carolina now to be the coordinator. But, you've seen him make throws. He's got a big arm, can run. Obviously smart. Is he a can't miss? I don't know that I want to stick that on him, because certainly guys, they swing this all the time. But I mean, when you just look at him and you just look at the film, and that's all you can go by, other than what you did at the combine, you feel good situation. Do I think he's going to be live up to the number one pick? I think, but wow, I mean, you're going to a team in Cincinnati that it doesn't even have the talent that your team at LSU had on it. So I don't know.
He really couldn't get on the field at Ohio State. He got in as a junior, but obviously as a senior, things clicked. What's the switch that comes on that takes Joe Burrow from his early career to Joe Burrow, the unanimous number one pick? What's the switch that flips?
Well, I think a change of scenery. He got around a bunch of really good football coaches. I mean, they did an amazing job down there, and we I think you and I have conversations about this all the time when we start talking recruiting guys, how they get recruited. I think recruiting that's one piece of it. How about being able to project guys, understanding where guys are going to go, and then being able to develop guys? You got to give Gary Patterson a lot of credit for doing that. He develops guys unbelievably. I think that's exactly what happened at LSU. I think he was able to go in there. He graduated early, so he was able to take graduate classes, maybe only 6 hours. I don't know what kind of semester load he took, but 6 or 9 hours. The rest of the time, he was immersed in football. And anytime you can do that at a place that it all hit at the right time, they got, like I said, they got an NFL coordinator come in there in a really throw it around friendly situation. You're playing in the SEC where guys have great corners. The flip side is LSU had huge, big physical receivers. And so he was able to get that ball out of his hand, and he was able to read defenses, and he did an unbelievable job in that about 18-month window that he was in Baton Rouge. And you got to give a lot of credit to the staff at LSU. You got to give credit to a change of scenery, and it clicked for him, and good for him, because it made him the number one pick.
I want to run through just a few other names from the draft this year and get a real quick response from you. What do you think of the Dolphins taking Tua with the 5th overall pick, and are you concerned about his health at all?
Well, I am a little concerned about his health, but obviously they had their doctors check that out, and they're not concerned with it. That's why they made a pick. Now, Chan Gailey is the new offensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins, and I work for Chan here in Dallas. Chan will build he's a smart enough guy to build a pretty simplistic initial scheme around him. Does he need a simplistic scheme? I don't know. I mean, he was around Steve Sarkisian, who was also an NFL coordinator. I think that had something to do with him going that early. I think how they designed the reads for him. I mean, he was reading high to low. He was reading sometime weak to strong. There was a lot of things that you could see Tua do that I think, led Miami to say, hey, you know what, we feel good enough to pick this guy. When that happens, though, then like we were talking about, then you see the run on quarterbacks go. I mean, the Herbert kid was projected to somewhere around 14 to 16. All of a sudden, when you got to have a quarterback, then you saw him go at he went 7 or 8, 9. He went early in the draft too. So, sometimes it's a run on a position. And as I'm telling you that, I don't mind telling you this. One of the first things that Larry Lacewell really taught me was, we were so glad we had Aikman when I got to the Cowboys, and after he left, we were so sad when he left, and I'll never forget Larry Lacewell telling me, Glenn, you better learn from this, because the one place you don't want to be stumbling around is in the quarterback wilderness. Don't be stumbling around in the quarterback wilderness. And I think that's exactly what happened when a team like Green Bay trades up into the first round to take the Love kid. I mean, they realized that, hey, Aaron Rodgers may only have 2 or 3 years in it. They took the Hundley kid out of UCLA a couple years ago. He didn't work out, so they're going to bring somebody else in that position in hopes that they never have to, like I was saying, stumble around in that quarterback wilderness.
There were people who said that they were surprised by what the Packers did, that they could have taken somebody that could be more supportive of their quarterback at a skill position or a line position, and that, the word was that their quarterback was not very happy with that. Do you think that's true? Do you think that Aaron Rodgers would have been upset that they took Jordan Love that high in the process?
Well, he probably was. He probably wanted some better receivers. He probably wanted some better offensive linemen. I mean, I'll use another guy. Let's use Carson Wentz. I mean, I would bet you that Carson Wentz is not happy with Philadelphia taking Jalen Hurts that early. He needed some other weapons. He wants some other weapons. And so I do think that's always a tough situation, and it's a tough situation to put a young player in. I mean, he better be awful mature to go in there and stand and hold the clipboard, get in that meeting room, and be able to do the things behind either Aaron Rodgers or, if you're Jalen Hurts, of Carson Wentz, because you're going to have to go in and you're going to have to learn. And the same way that Mahomes did. I mean, he had to go in. That was a one-year deal, and he was off and running. But going in and stepping in and playing day one, it'll be interesting to see what Miami does. Are they going to play two a day one? Is he healthy enough? I mean, all those questions are going to be out there.
Let's talk a little bit of college football and thus the next draft. Trevor Lawrence from Clemson, he's already had a fantastic career. He's a presumptive number one pick for 2021 in the draft. He's got all the measurables. Is he the next Joe Burrow? Will he be, that much of an obvious number one pick?
Well, I mean, you have to, again, that air condition the desert for a reason. We could go out there and bet on this, but I mean, I think he is. I think he is. He has everything that you look for in that number one guy. He's big, physical, smart, throw the football, he push the ball outside the numbers, which that's what it's all about in the NFL. They can shut parts of the field down on you. You better have a big enough arm to get that ball on those deeper routes and be able to really put the ball on a line. And Trevor Lawrence, he's got that. I mean, he has that ability, and that's what will make him the odds-on favorite to be, the number one guy. Now we start talking about Sam Ehlinger at the University of Texas, Buechele, who was the backup at the University of Texas, who's now had good numbers at SMU. That's what scouts are going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for that guy, that guy after Trevor Lawrence that is the ability, and he has the ability to get the ball out on time. He can get the ball in tight windows. He can anticipate. He can throw guys open. All the scouting jargon that you hear about, that's exactly what guys will be looking for, coming into this 2021 college football season.
How do you think Ehlinger, you spoke of him, how do you think he projects for next year in the NFL?
Well, he's a big, strong, physical kid. It'll be interesting that, they're changing the offense. The Ohio State offensive coordinator, Urich, is going to come in there, do some different things. I think it'll depend heavily on how he performs his senior year. They've got to go to LSU. I mean, they play a really good schedule. They play Oklahoma every year. Oklahoma's going to be good. So, he'll get tested, and he's going to get tested early. And I think it depends on how he accepts that new offense and how he's able to grasp all that. And right now, I haven't done enough real study and be able to look at him, but I mean, he's got a plenty strong enough arm, and he obviously can run. The rush doesn't bother him, and all those things are pluses when you start thinking about initially flipping it on and grading.
There's a quarterback that you and I have had some opportunity to be around in camps, and then you mentioned him earlier, Shane Buechele. He was at Texas, transferred to SMU. He's had a lot of talent around him. He's got his offensive line coming back his senior year. I'm not sure he's somebody that you would have looked at as an undergrad and think he's bound for the NFL, but I saw an article this week where he's, one of the top 10 potential quarterbacks for the NFL draft next year. Do you see him playing at the next level?
I do. I do think he'll have an opportunity to play at the next level. Now, what he does with that opportunity, I mean that'll be the $30,000 question. But I do think he's got. I mean, he's been in enough offenses. You've seen him do some things in college. He can throw the deep ball well. I mean, hopefully he'll have the opportunity to get a little stronger, a little more. I think needs to be a little bit more on the physical side. But yeah, he's got the tools to be able to play at the highest level, and we'll have to see how he plays his senior year. And I think that's be big to look and see who steps out and who separates themselves this year, kind of, and gets up behind a guy like Trevor Lawrence. Who is that guy? And I think those two guys certainly are going to have the opportunity to step up and compete and go be the guy. And both those guys have the tools and I think the skill set to be able to play at the highest level.
As we begin to wrap up, let's switch gears just a little. And I ask this question of almost every one of our guests, especially ones with your background. What is it that makes a college quarterback a great NFL prospect? I had Jim Zorn on, who you're good friends with, and so am I, former NFL head coach and quarterback. And at that time, he was the head coach of Seattle in the XFL. That obviously is gone now. But I asked him, and he said that the big issue to him is that quarterback's ability to learn the pro game, to keep getting better, to keep absorbing information and be able to, almost be like a vacuum and suck those things up. What is it to you that makes a college quarterback a great NFL prospect?
Well, the first thing that I look at is, can the guy get the ball out on time? Can he hit his back step, and can the football come out? And again, all we have is our own point of reference for what we were around. And I was around maybe one of the best pure throwers of the football in my time with the Cowboys and Troy Aikman. And Troy Aikman got the football out on time, and he could throw guys open. You have to be able to see the field and throw those guys open. You have to be able to transition your weight and the ball to come out on time, and then you have to be able to have the discernment in a quick situation to know what can break the play down. One of the greatest things that we ever did when I was with the Cowboys, and I'll give you this quick story, was that when Coach Switzer took over, he had guys actually clinic not go out and clinic other coaches, clinic the guys on our staff as to what you taught. And one of the greatest things that I heard from Wade Wilson, and God rest his soul, he passed away about a year and a half ago. But when Wade got up there, and I'll never forget this is a guy who played in the run and shoot. He played in the West Coast. He played in the Ernie Zambezi. He played in every system that you could play in. I didn't say coach in. He played quarterback in those systems. So understanding and being able to grasp information and how he talked about just the 12 to 15 seconds from the time he heard the play in his ear till the time the ball got snapped, what his thinking process was, which was when he heard the play, what can break down this play? What can hurt this play? What coverage am I hoping to see? What do I think I'm going to see? What's going to happen? And then bang, the ball snapped, and you got to be able to get it out. So my initial answer to your question, Bill, is you got to be able to get the ball out on time, and you got to be able to have discernment and have that in a very quick fashion in order to transition, to playing in the NFL.
Are the colleges preparing quarterbacks to be NFL quarterbacks, or is there just a tremendous amount of work to do if you're an NFL coordinator or QB coach once you get that player?
Well, I do think the learning curve has been sped up. I think guys are learning more now about football than they ever have. I think you see a lot of even college principals kind of coming into the NFL, so guys are able to transition quickly. But I also think that when you talk about the coaches and being able to get guys quickly or on the Autobahn to playing in the NFL, they're trying to get these young men in position to be as comfortable as they can with those situations. So, and I think that's why you see some of the verbiage changing. I think you saw, Andy Reid be able to transition and do those things with Patrick Mahomes. I think you saw, when the Rams quarterback, and we know Zach Robinson's out there coaching the quarterbacks now. Being able to help those guys grasp the NFL system, but also using some of their verbiage and keeping them comfortable. I think that's the thing that really is starting to separate a lot of guys, and guys are starting to understand that, we want these quarterbacks to be able to transition here and play quickly, but we've also got to have a system that is friendly to them and use some of their verbiage so that they're just not coming into what sounds like a complete foreign language to have to, like we were talking about earlier, hear it in your ear and then pull the trigger and make it happen.
If you were going to be a GM and start a team today, regardless of whether somebody's available or not, who's the one or two quarterbacks that you would say, I want them on my team to start this?
Well, I'd probably go with Aaron Rodgers right now. I think he's right in his prime. Everybody's going to say, would probably say Brady, and I think as a young guy, Mahomes. Those would be the two guys, in Rodgers and Mahomes, that I would say, I would take. And I do think that Andy Reid's done a phenomenal job, because I think that's the first, being Mahomes is the first player who's come out of that offense and been able to transition it quickly to the NFL. We can go all the way back to Andre Ware and David Klingler and Cliff Kingsbury and all those guys who threw for a zillion yards in their offenses. They weren't able to come into the NFL and transition that quickly. But I think Mahomes is a phenomenal athlete, and I'm a big Aaron Rodgers guy. The way he throws the football, the way the ball comes out, I think it's pretty much second to none. And to watch it spin and how it comes out of it's really natural.
You're a bit of an old school guy, but, obviously currently a big attribute and trait that people talk about is the ability to extend the play. You can go through a handful of quarterbacks that are known for that now in the NFL. Last question, how important is that to you in today's NFL quarterback?
Well, you do have to. You do have to be able to extend the play. You've got to be able to. Your defenses have gotten so complex with what they show and how they show it, and the different things they can bring. We talk about, and you and I have had this conversation multiple times too. I am old school in that I think that you can take a look at what's going on initially, and I still believe that you can get that football out of your hand on time. And I want to see those guys be able to do that. But certainly when they bring different blitzes, they bring different packages, they bring different things, you better be able, if you can't figure it out quickly, you better be able to extend plays. And I think that's what a lot of these, athletic guys, and that's what Carson Wentz is doing. That's what Mahomes has been able to do. Is extend that play, and that you got to have great feet and you got to feel the rush. I didn't say see the rush. I said feel the rush. You got to be able to feel it, feel that pressure around you. And the guys that can do that, keep their eyes up, keep their eyes down the field. That's the guy that sees that guy break open because they can't cover him forever.
Well, Glenn, as always, great stuff. Thanks for your time, and thanks so much for being with us.
Appreciate it, Bill. Have a good day.
You too. Take care. That'll do it for this episode of The Quarterback Room, powered by Sports One. I'm Bill Webb. Thanks for listening.